What does Escape the Backrooms hide from the player off camera in the Sublimity, Run for Your Life, The End, the Escherian Stairwell, and Motion areas? In Escape the Backrooms, you're thrown into an array of horrific locations where, alongside your teammates, or even completely on your own, you must solve puzzles and survive the nightmarish entities within. In this video, we will be pulling the curtain back and taking a look at some things we're not typically supposed to see, as well as breaking the game along the way. Like, did you know you can access the front seat of the trucks in level 94? And what happens when you get behind the monsters and run for your life? We have a ton of stuff to check out, so I hope you enjoy this dive into Escape the Backrooms. So once we've managed to sneak through level fun, we take a slide that leads us into level 37, Sublimity, also known as the Poolrooms. Once here, our main objective is to explore this maze of water-filled corridors in search of the exit. On this particular map, we can find a hub entrance, as well as a couple of dead ends, and I mean that quite literally. There's a spiraling staircase that leads to a pit of boiling water, and coming in contact with it will immediately kill you. There are also these dark tiled rooms that will slowly kill the player if they remain inside for too long. After exploring a bit, we'll come to a room with a small rectangular pool, and just beyond it is this level's exit. Now heading back to the start of the level, I decide to take the camera around and explore a bit more of this area. If we move the camera up and out of the map, we can see that these little vents near the beginning of the level actually lead outside of the map. Taking a look between the roof of this maze and these small rooms though, we will find this strange empty space in between. The lights outside the map are illuminating the vent holes attached to these small interconnecting halls, resulting in some pretty cool visuals. Zooming a bit further out, we can see that most of the water in this area is actually a large rectangle that spans across the length of the map itself. For the rest of the rooms though, they have individual sections of water beneath them instead of a single large piece. As I mentioned before, there are a few of these rooms that are lined with darker tiles, and the water inside of them is lethal. They're also typically too dark for you to see inside of, even with the use of a flashlight, so viewing them with the lights on is pretty cool. We can also move the player onto the roof of the starting area, as it is in fact walkable ground, and we can explore a little bit too. It's pretty cool seeing the vents from up here, as they each have a bit of steam rising from them, and we can even drop down inside of them if we wanted to. There's not a ton to see here, but before moving on to the next level, it wouldn't feel right spending some time at the pool without a good old-fashioned cannonball. So I run as fast as I can before jumping into the pit of boiling water below, and as you can see, the moment I hit the water's surface, I explode into half a dozen pieces. Glorious! So heading into the next level, Run for Your Life, we find ourselves inside of a hospital with a long corridor in front of us stretching into the distance. The lights are bright red, and there are alarms blaring all around us as well. On the right, there's a smiler behind some closed doors, and although you can't see them, the door on our left is full of partygoers. In this level, our goal is to make it to the end of this hallway as these entities relentlessly pursue us, and we'll have to dodge each obstacle blocking our path along the way. Reaching the doors at the end, we jump into a dark hole, which takes us to the following level called The End. Overall, this level will only last a little over 30 seconds, but there is a lot for us to unpack here. So first and foremost, we can take a look at the entities on this map with the lights on, where we'll find the smiler is more than just a face in the dark. They're actually the same smiler we encounter in pipe dreams. And if we move the camera out of ways and angle it correctly, we can see their spider-like body. On the opposite side, we'll find 7 partygoers eagerly waiting for those doors to open. These particular entities don't behave like the others we've encountered though, and if we break the doors and enter these little rooms, we'll find that in their present state, they are completely harmless. The smiler is a solid object, and no jump scare occurs when we touch them. And the partygoers are the same story, except we are able to walk through them. Speaking of the partygoers, when we enter the hallway and trigger the chase to start, we can see that they all just sort of slide out of that little closet. The moment they reach the main hallway though, the running animation will begin. This smiler, on the other hand, will be forever in this idle pose as it moves down this corridor. And the reason for this is because we never actually see the smiler itself. We only see its face through a veil of darkness that moves with this herd of enemies. If I move the camera back, you can see that this shadowy barrier is really a black cube that is placed around the smiler. And it is moved with them throughout this chase sequence. Something you usually can't see because of how fast this chase scene plays out is how the party goer enters this small hallway to follow the player. If we move the camera into that main corridor, we will see that they just sort of slide away from the rest of the group, and upon reaching the door at the end, they will slide back into the group again. But now let's try to break some stuff. So first and foremost, as you may have guessed, I was curious if we would be able to delete some of the floor and send these monsters plummeting to their doom. Sometimes it doesn't work, so it's a good test. So I made a couple of holes in the floor, and upon activating the chase, they'll walk right over these holes like they aren't even there. The reason this happens is because, similar to the Smiler chase in Pipe Dreams, they aren't technically chasing the player at all. They're actually programmed so that when activated by the player, they'll follow a set path, which just happens to be the direction the player is moving in. This can be demonstrated by teleporting the player behind the monsters after they have begun moving. As you can see, we're now directly behind them, and they couldn't care less. They're still trekking towards the end of the hallway, and will do so until they reach the end. Once they reach the end of this hall, the map will be reloaded after a brief delay, and will be sent to the beginning again. I believe this is a failsafe that is put here to prevent the player from glitching behind the monsters and breaking this chase sequence entirely. Now, while I was messing with the game a bit, I realized something strange had taken place. For some reason, when I began walking through the level, the monsters, didn't activate? So I was free to explore this area without being chased, and it's definitely a bit strange considering you're usually only here for less than a minute. While climbing over this mess of furniture though, I managed to get stuck on a medical cart and couldn't break free. And because of this, the game sound got super glitchy. Have a listen. At the end of the hallway, we can take a look at the hole we're meant to jump into, and because the lights are on, we can actually see the bottom. What I find pretty interesting though, is that if we jump into it at this point, we will simply hit the ground and nothing happens. So I have to restart the level. Finally, before heading into the next level, I decided to shrink the player down and see if we could complete this chase. As the sequence begins, I am running for my life. And what's really funny is that because we're so small, we're actually able to fit underneath some of the furniture, meaning we don't even have to go around it. And after an adrenaline-pumping chase, we reach the door and load into the next level. So in the level, The End, you load into a mostly empty library that is lined with wooden shelves. This area's entity immediately makes his presence known as it wanders blindly in search of the player. In order to complete this level, you have to turn the computer on at the front desk, and then collect some VHS tapes that are scattered throughout this location, all while sneaking quietly and utilizing fire alarms to evade the Scratcher. Once you've collected all the tapes, the Scratcher will despawn, and a portal will appear that takes us to the following level. Restarting the level, we can take a closer look at this level's entity, and they're definitely pretty menacing. Their body is a grayish color, and they have long, lanky limbs extending from their elongated torso. They are made even creepier by their glowing red eyes and lack of a mouth. It's pretty unsettling watching them move, as their body constantly shakes and contorts with each step. Taking a look outside the map, there are a couple of interesting things to check out, including these two squares floating in the void. Now, the square on the right is present in every level, and it is used for the recording overlay that can be turned on in the settings. However, now there is a second square, and this one contains the number that appears on the computer screen as we collect those tapes. But something even more interesting is that just outside the map itself is a small cube with some stairs in it. This is a section of the following level, the Escherian Stairwell, and at first I wasn't sure why this was placed out here. It turns out, when we collect all of the VHS tapes, we can see a distorted view of the stairwell within the portal itself. And upon further inspection, this is a live view of the map component that is stored out of bounds. We can actually warp the player over here, as it does have collision, and walk around freely. It's a bit funny though because this asset is scaled up quite a bit, so we look way too small inside of it. Since this area is being viewed through that portal, we can move the camera back inside the map and see ourselves inside of it. And it's pretty hilarious watching the player run around like this. Before moving on, we can watch what happens when the Scratcher is despawned. And the moment we interact with the computer, after collecting all the tapes, they will quickly rise up through the ceiling and unload. So upon entering the Escherian Stairwell, we find ourselves on the first floor of this massive spiraling staircase. Our goal is to continue climbing upwards until we reach a floor that is labeled 94, where we will then jump down the center of the staircase, leading us to the next level. This location is pretty simple, and there are no entities present to worry about, but I was really curious how this map worked behind the scenes. So if we move the camera out of bounds, we'll see that the map itself is a large tower floating in the void. The stairwell itself starts off at 11 floors tall, and with each floor you climb, we can see that the tower expands upward by another section. This will supposedly continue infinitely, with each floor beyond the 99th being loaded in with an infinity symbol. Something I found pretty cool is that if we teleport the player directly to the top of the tower, we can walk around up here without the next floor loading in. However, if we drop down into the staircase and then take a look up above, we'll see that even more floors have loaded in separately from the rest. To my understanding, the way this works is that each section loads in 10 floors above you. That way, you'll never be able to see this process occurring. Now, after reaching the room labeled 94, we can move the camera all the way back down to the bottom, where we'll find a large hole now occupying the center. If the player drops into the center of the staircase, they will begin an unstoppable freefall animation leading them into the void, where they will enter the next level. As this sequence plays out, the player's body will unload, and only our arms will be visible until we enter the next level. That's all there is to check out on this map, so let's continue on to level 94, Motion. This map is a massive landscape full of lush green hills, winding roads, and houses scattered throughout. Your goal is to make it through this expansive location in order to ultimately end up inside the floating castle on the far side. This particular location utilizes a day/night cycle, and if you're outside after dark, you risk being killed by the animations. These are small, puppet-like entities that will pursue the player if spotted after sunset, and they'll even chase you indoors if the lights are not shut off, meaning the only real safe space is inside of a closet or under a bed. Throughout this map, you can also find a handful of trucks that, when entered, will take you closer to the castle, saving you a fair bit of time. Upon reaching the castle, we climb up a rope and end up inside of what looks like a funhouse of sorts. We solve a puzzle here, and then enter a larger, mall-like area with a roller coaster, where we will find the animated king, this level's boss. He will attempt to attack you from all directions, and you must look directly at him in order to prevent him from reaching you. After surviving 100 seconds, the roller coaster will be ready, and we can escape by riding it into the next level. Rewinding time, the first thing I wanted to do was get an aerial shot of this entire map. And man, it is huge. It's kinda crazy because when we're zoomed this far out, the houses look like tiny specks, and we can't even see the player. Moving the camera to the end of the level, I was curious what the castle looked like up close. And as you can see, it is completely empty inside, except for this large black cube floating just above the floor. While I was over here, I tried teleporting the player inside, but we're only able to stay on the top of the castle, and the collision mesh doesn't line up exactly, so we're just kinda hovering above it. So after night falls, if you leave the lights on in the house you're currently hiding in, the animations will break in through the front door. If we move the camera outside of the closet while we're hiding, we can get a good look at them too. As you can see, they are childlike wooden puppets that look to be wearing Boy Scout uniforms, and they'll just sort of stare out of the window until the sun comes up. We can also see that with the lighting effects turned off, their eyes do not glow red, but instead look mostly human. The moment the sun comes up, they will immediately run out of the house and into the distance before unloading. We can also take a look from another perspective at their jump scare, and it's pretty funny looking. They'll take a step back before lunging into the air like a professional wrestler and clobbering us on the head. And as if things couldn't get any worse, they begin A-posing on us to assert dominance. Not cool, man. Now when night falls, there are only so many places to hide. But while messing around with the game, I may have found another way to escape these terrifying entities. Typically, the trucks close their doors at night, so if you don't reach them in time, you're pretty much out of luck. That is, until I found out you can access them even if their doors are closed. So by crouching at the front of these trucks, you can actually clip through the front bumper and into the engine bay. And by standing up and walking forward, you can end up in the cab. Now what's interesting is that the trigger to start moving the truck can also be hit from inside the cab, meaning we can still hitch a ride from this typically inaccessible spot. Even after nightfall, the entities are incapable of entering the truck, and we don't have to worry about the doors opening, meaning we are completely safe to enjoy the trucker life as long as we'd like. Now jumping ahead, when we enter the castle we climb this giant rope, and this is what that looks like from a different angle. Once inside the castle, we can take a look at a bounds, where we'll see that this carnival area exists within a large, rusty blue dome. I'm not sure what it's used for, but there's also a white square just outside the map itself. If you know what this is used for, let me know in the comments. Now, if we break the door before the puzzle is solved, we can actually explore this open area without activating the boss fight. There really isn't a whole lot to see here, but I do want to check out the animated king boss fight. So when the animated king spawns in to attack the player, they just kind of load in somewhere in the map and begin running towards us. We can watch in bullet time what happens when they fade away, and it looks like the dude got Thanos snapped. He fades away into small particles before reappearing elsewhere. Finally, when we access the roller coaster, you can see that a separate model loads in to play out this animation, and I was curious what happens if we delete the roller coaster itself. And after doing so, we just kinda crazy frog it and stop moving. After the length of the cutscene plays out though, we will load into level 6, Lights Out. But with that, we finish our dive into levels 7 through 11 in Escape the Backrooms. There is still a ton of neat stuff to see in this game, so make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss my next upload. Thanks for watching, and cheers!